How are you, Mr. Ryman?
I am well, Mr. Luchins. Whenever somebody says Mr. Ryman, I still like look around for my dad because
I
I'm
know. I
pushing
still
50 and I still don't feel like Mr. Ryman.
I still sir and ma'am everyone the way I was brought up by the lady who raised me, whole nother podcast type of thing. But I still have that. And then yeah, the some of my daughter's friends when they're growing up would be like Mr. Luchins, and then I'd be like, just call me Sean. And there were a couple of them that to this day still are Mr. Sean. So they've met
I
me
get
in the
lots of
middle, and
lots of
I'm like,
Mr. Paul and lots of coach, since I'm
yes.
sort of like the neighborhood sports coach for all the kids'
That
schools, it
never
feels
leaves.
like.
I still see people 30 years later, 20 years later that I was coaching and they're like, hey, coach. And at first you're like, who else is here? Because now they're like grown humans, adulting, which is kind of weird to see. We are excited to have Dane Hickey here. I will joke and then explain. Welcome. Dane is our first 10-time participant on the Total Rewarding Chats. How are you, Dane?
I'm doing great. Nice weather here in Kansas City, Missouri side. Yes, finally got through the technology. As my age says, I was struggling with it. Who would have thought? I'll just throw my age out there. 27-year-old was having technical difficulties. So,
Well,
but
only
yes, I'm doing great.
because those of us that are, oh my God, did you say 27?
27. You said younger, but I don't think you knew how much younger. So,
I
yeah.
think you are the first, I think you're the first guest that is younger than my kids. And not all of them, just one of them, but that still cuts. So I take even, I feel even better, Dane, that you couldn't get in on the technology and Paul and I could. And I did hint to Dane that AARP and the local senior centers do have classes on technology. And so Dane can get in.
I've been
As
looking forward to it. Yeah.
as you would know, Sean, as you would
Yeah,
know.
as I would know for sure. I am a proud AARP member. I won't lie. We got to lean in. Thanks for joining, Dane. Dane did have the misfortune of being on a panel with me in Kansas City. I was actually stoked I made the panel because the night before, Paul can joke, I did stay at a Cracker Barrel outside of the city, and there was a high wind warning. And so I stayed upright in the Cracker Barrel parking lot, and then was able to hang with Dane on a panel. And I enjoyed chatting with Dane so much that I'm like, you know what? Let's get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Sean
Dane,
saw
I
how
don't
much of a fanboy I was, and he said he felt bad for me, and he's like, "I'm just going to get you on the podcast because you think you're our biggest fan and one of 10 watchers or something of that nature." So,
and Dane, I don't know if you know this, and I know I haven't told you this story, Sean. So now when I travel about the country, if I see like a company or a client that I recognize, I immediately like send a message. And Dane, you were actually the initiator of that strategy for me several years ago as I was driving with my family. You were still with Subaru in Indiana, driving past the giant thing on the side of the highway. At my next stop, I sent a quick note. Hey, just pass by. I don't know if you remember that email, but it like started this tradition I have now when I drive by or fly by a location. I'm like, oh, that's the company that Sean works at. I'll send a quick note. Hey, just drove by, saw the company, thought of you, hope you're well. Like literally, it's just the thing I do now. And Dane is person number one of that because the Subaru tenure of yours is stuck in my head for some reason. Like every time I see Subaru, I think of your email address. So look at that.
That is, I did not know that you guys had like met before either. The giant world that is comp, that happens a lot. So speaking of that, then Dane, give us your 20, don't give us all 27 years of history, but give us kind of your history in the profession. And then usually also, because it can't be more than 10 or 15 years in comp, right? Tell us what you studied in college, in school too, and how you ended up
Why
in comp.
this?
Yeah,
Why
why this?
comp? Yeah.
yeah, great. I'll actually start with the school part. So, Wichita State graduate here in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I'm from. Was going to be an engineer. I think I talked a little bit about Sean, changed my major a ton of times. When I got into the university, decided I was like, all right, BA is what it is, and I'm going to get a management major. Had a very non-traditional HR professor who was a drill sergeant in the past life. Black painted fingernails, black high platform boots, came in. We had a good talk. He's like, hey, listen, you're not going to go out of college and be a manager, right? It's a bit of a false premise they sell you. So he's like, specialize in something. I was like, you're non-traditional of what I would have expected from HR. Very direct, very great with people, veterans affairs. And I'm like, all right, HR is, I guess, where I'm going. Thought it was because I liked people. My first internship, my boss is like, why do you want HR? I said, like people. She said, you need to find a different reason. Stuck with me. So, right. You don't stay in HR because you like people. Obviously you love supporting people. I tell people I almost failed my comp class in college. Plagiarism on a final written piece, not for me, but somebody on our team of four, right? Love working on teams. It always works out great. And so, yeah, I was like, from the get go, I'm like, great, going to end up in comp. Absolutely not. I got very fortunate to get an email while I was in college to be a contractor essentially for the benefits department at Textron Aviation in Wichita. Cessna Beechcraft, if you're familiar, they build those aircraft. I was like, yep, aligns with HR. I was working at a bank at the time. I was like, yep, better get some experience in where I'm going because I have no idea what I'm doing in HR. Got super lucky, did really well. Led into an internship, led into an offer to go into a leadership development program. Thought I wanted to be an HR business partner. So when I was an intern, that's who I supported. Got advice from multiple HR directors. You'll see a common theme in my career as far as like seeking people out for advice and kind of like helping me guide my career. They said, hey, I was like, what does any business partner need? Or what do you think is a skill set or a gap that business partners have? They're like, go get comp experience. Every single one of them. That was the first thing out of their mouth. I worked at a very large developed organization, and later in my career, I realized how developed they were. But job architecture, structures, when you're talking about restructuring an org, management levels is really important to understand. First job out of college, broad-based comp at a business unit for a large multinational country or multinational corporation. So that's how I got the intro. And then second rotation, I was like, all right, business partner. Did that for 8 months, decided, yep, comps were. I'm supposed to be, I think Paul is actually the first person I hear say, comp doesn't, or you don't choose comp chooses you. I believe it was World at Work 2020.
You got it.
I believe is what I heard them say that. And it just resonated, right? Like my mind and how I'm wired, comp just kind of speaks to me. And I've told people that it sounds crazy, but it just makes sense when I talk about comp. So I know this is longer than 20 seconds, but broad-based HR business partner, knew I wanted to be on a corporate team. I'd had some situations as a business partner I didn't fully agree with, and I wanted to have more visibility, understanding like how was a structure built for an organization? Why am I confined to managing within the structure? At the time, I again was working for Textron, loved Textron. They're headquartered in Rhode Island. That's where the corporate team was, and I was like, I'm not moving to Rhode Island. No offense, Sean, on Northeastern. I wasn't moving to Rhode Island. It wasn't an option for me. So relocated to Georgia, which is where my last business partner role had been. I went to work for Mohawk Industries, which is where I first got introduced to Nova Insights, Comp Tool, big fan of Justin Hampton as well. Got it ingrained in that job architecture, building that from the ground up, really acting as like a project-based comp person, managing job architecture for 17,000 employees domestically. After that, frankly, I just got a little bored. I liked being in the weeds of things, and it's nothing against that team. It's just when you're on a corporate team, things tend to move much slower. I like getting thrown a variety of things. I'd always wanted to work for an automotive manufacturer, and then got the offer to go to Subaru. That's where Paul recognized me from. Spent a year there, built step structure for production-based populations mostly, led everything compensation related, even advised on executive comp, which I got some exposure from. And then, 4 years away from home, friends and family, having kids, or my friends are having kids. I'm not having kids. And I was like, all right, time to get closer to home. So Kansas City was a good option and got the offer to come out here. So long story short, that's just kind of the progression I've been on. And I would say fairly well-rounded, been exposed to a lot of things, public sector, a little bit of executive comp, a lot of broad-based, a lot of job architecture, which is what I've stood up when I came here. And that's what path we're on. So now.
That's pretty average amount of experience for somebody who graduated high school at 12. Like that's, you read that off. And I tell you, if you hadn't mentioned your age, or they were looking at you online, you'd think that it was a lot longer. It is interesting, and we can dig into that after we get through the speed round of how both the advice and how you got yourself exposed to a lot of stuff, because I do think that is really cool the way you've done that. And as opposed to kind of sitting in one spot and kind of becoming like a specialist inside of a specialty in comp. So you've heard most of them, but are you a tea or coffee person, Dane?
I'm a Celsius actually every day, but if I had to choose between the two, coffee, I would go. I'm not a big tea fan, but
So we're gonna keep track of I feel old moments, I think, in this whole thing. What is a Celsius? Is that like a
I don't know if if I'm going to get in trouble for product placement, but
No, we're hoping. No, we're going to
Yeah.
carve this out and actually go for a sponsorship. So no, please do it again. You did it so well too, Dane.
is it like an energy drink? Like
yeah, it's an energy drink. Yeah,
Okay,
it's really popular. Yeah, no, I'm not a huge coffee person, but I have a Celsius every day, which
It's a shout out. We need to shout out. We need to get Dane, and we need to find one other plus Liz Neville, who's Monster, and we need to do like have those that are the non-coffee energy drink thing, and have like a bake off.
Josh is a Coke Zero, right? So
Who
there's
is?
a few. Remember Josh Menzinger is a
Oh
Coke
yeah,
Zero
he's
guy?
Coke Zero.
Like,
So we need to go with the soda. That works. Soda, the power water, or the Monster. That's what we have to do. What do you do for fun outside of work? Hobby?
Yeah, everything expensive, pretty much. I know we've talked a little bit about cycling, anything with two wheels. So downhill bikes, gravel bikes. I got an e-bike. Dirt bikes is what I've done my whole life. So you'll be another theme is just a very highly competitive person, largely from my background in more independent sports. A little bit of golf when it's nice out, and then CrossFit's what I do pretty much every day. So in a CrossFit gym 4 to 5 days a week. That kind of curves my competitive side that I need to get out. So yeah, pretty much anything that costs a lot of money, that's a hobby I probably do or dabbled in. So
and this is the most important question as we get here, knowing that you have a weekend away by yourself to go do some hobbies, I guess. Would you rather go to a posh resort and do these, or go out in the woods and camp?
I think I'm similar to Paul on some cases. I would like to have a nice place to live or stay in nature. So hotel, nice Airbnb. I'm not a camper. Honestly, I couldn't tell you how to put up a camp or a tent. I have tented in my past with racing, but yeah, I would prefer to be outdoors, but having a more luxurious place to stay at night so I can shower.
That is my youngest. All my kids are, I call them camping capable, but my youngest for sure is a posh at night, rough it during the day, really opposite thing. Do you have a vacation spot you haven't been to that's on top of your wish list?
Aruba, probably. Yeah, something island based. Again, not a resort person, but yeah, it'd be cool. I've heard a lot of great things about Aruba. I've lived in Northeast Tennessee in the Appalachians, so I would say that would be it if I hadn't already been there. But other than that, yeah, probably Aruba.
Yeah, even with Aruba, I've been. I probably wouldn't use the tent there either. Windy on the beach, I'd go with the resort.
I probably would like to see you try. That would be an entertaining time.
Not in person though. In another tent, you just want like a camera there to watch me flail around in the wind.
Better or worse than the trailer at the Cracker Barrel in the Midwest?
Yeah,
give me
you
a
guys.
rating of which one is more frightening for you.
It was 70-mile-an-hour winds that night, Paul. And one of the things when I go to the Cracker Barrel out of sheer laziness, is I just pull in. I don't put any of the legs down on the trailer support, and I did not look at the weather. So just 12:30 in the morning, the wind started hitting and the trailer shaking around. I'm like, oh, sweet. Welcome to.
Am I flying? Yeah.
No, thanks. And and the weird part, like I literally was in Kansas. So it's like, where this was happening. Are you crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Creamy for sure, but I do enjoy a good crunchy peanut butter and jelly from time to time if it's there. So my brother's the crunchy side, so we always had creamy and crunchy in the house. So
nice parental units. Give them credit. So with all your experience, one of the things you and I spoke about when we were there why I wanted to have you on is we have a lot of people with more tenure than you on with experience that talk about a lot, all the things they've seen and, what they might do. And with your 5, 6, 7 years experience, if you took a step back and said, here's some things I wish, like if I was new to the space, however people get to comp, because I was a late bloomer, I guess, 27, I was in my 30s, probably when I ended up in comp and still can't get out, I guess. What are things you wish you would have been told or known or resources, et cetera? And then also, however you want to tackle it, some things that you either were told were true, or some things that you had to kind of work through to be like, actually, people said this was a thing, and I have found to be successful, it hasn't. And then the last thing, and we'll kind of come back if you forget, is like, any tips to anybody coming out that you thought were super successful to getting where you are? Because I wasn't joking aside, where you are now managing a program at 27 is really impressive. And the amount of experience you have too, and I was speaking to you around the different verticals inside a comp, is also a little mind blowing. So that's a long lead in to, kind of start with, things you wish you would have known as you were coming out.
Yeah, World at Work Forum, probably number one, I'll be completely honest. Right now we're working through potential geodifferential stuff, and there's a million different forums on World at Work about geodiff. I think Paul I think I've seen your name pop up on a 2023 one the other day. It's resources like that are available, and this is where I would love to have the experience of working in comp in like 2005, early 2000s, when it probably was less of a known function, to now, and how things have transitioned and what was available then that people were using, other than just talking to peers they come across. And back then, your largest companies have it, but maybe not the companies I'm working for now probably wouldn't have had a comp person. Comp's really come into the light, even since I've joined. Like I said, January 2021 is when I started my first comp role. Comp has evolved a lot since then as well. And so I think just the available resources that are out there for people to ask questions and learn from, again, just in the 5 years I've been in it, has increased significantly. And not to give Paul too much a big ego, but companies like Noble Insights, companies like Justin Hampton, other experts, Brian Briscoe, like these people that are willing to put themselves out there and just say, hey, here's the mistakes I've made, here's what I've learned from conferences like World at Work. I will be completely honest, the first World at Work conference I went to, I didn't think was great, but I went to one 2 years ago. I'm like, wow, they've really turned around the materials and really trying to help people become experts in the field of compensation. And so I just appreciate a lot of those people I've named to be willing to put themselves out there and say, hey, here's what I've done and learned from. So that's been a big thing for me, especially in the last few years, honing in of just trying to take in any resource and expertise that is out there, and also try to give my voice back too, and be a voice for the next generation of comp professionals. Like I said, 27, and in a position that I've been very fortunate for. And so I want to help people that are coming out of college realize, like, hey, there's a great career path within the compensation realm. If you're analytical, if you like influence, if you like making a difference, like people don't always see that in the comp side, but if you look at the track record and companies that are doing it right, there's a lot of impact on people's lives by getting compensation right. Making a good employee experience, making people want to be there and not feel like they have to go somewhere else just to get a living,
Sure.
Make a living or develop or increase their career capacity. That's my goal here, is to attract and retain the best talent. It's in my job description, and I have a direct influence on our company being able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the shout out. Don't make my ego any bigger. Trust me, my wife will not be happy if
we won't be able to have any more guests on. His head won't fit
it's
in the
done,
square.
right? Like, now that said, let me throw myself under a bus to an extent. So you mentioned I was around comp in 2005. I'm going to make a bold statement, which is, if you're reading anything that we talked about in 2005, it's time to throw it away. Because I'm pretty sure not only is the function more prominent and visible, the rules are different, right? Like the world of work was very different. And, when I think about my first 7 years in comp compared to the 7 years that you're in, so I have to imagine, because you're an astute observer of others and you're soaking in all these resources, there's got to be some stuff that you're like, yeah, they told me that when I started this, but that's not true. Like, you can't actually get away with it. I'm just curious. Like, challenge yourself, or challenge this old guys a little bit, because I'm having this own awakening where, wow, a lot of stuff I built in the first 7 years of my career isn't right anymore. Like, it will not work if I did that again. So I'm sure you're seeing that. So I'd be curious your opinion on, like, what are some of those practices that everybody said were right, and now that you've been in it, you're like, yeah, it's time to rethink that stuff.
I think people try to make comp overly complex, if I'm being completely honest. And Paul, I know you're a little bit of that data nerd side. Sean on the engineering side. I think people try to over-engineer how you do compensation. I'm not opposed to things like an offer tool, right? If you're a massive corporation, you need some governance and guidance, right? I can't be involved in every offer, but I think we try to put a formula to everything, and there's humans involved. And I think that's where Sean and I probably differ a little bit on manager discretion with merit, which we'll probably get into, right? You're talking about people, and everybody's journey is different. And that's where I think bigger companies that are going towards a compensation partner model that have more people embedded like business partners, and I haven't done it, but I'd love to talk to those people of, are you seeing a better result because you're more connected to the human side of the business, and you're helping make decisions or drive decisions because you know the people, and you're not just putting names on a spreadsheet or a job to market pricing, which, Paul, we can probably talk about. The market pricing has also evolved significantly since 2021 when I entered, right? You can't wait for data to come out. Aging data 3% doesn't mean that's going to happen or not happen, right? 4% or 3% merit budget, just 3% just doesn't cut it, right? For companies who are having retention issues. So there's just a lot of things that, and I'm going to forget his last name, but James, that was on here. I know you guys had difference of opinions, right? But I like the fact that there's people challenging the pay for performance model. I think it's important. Performance is one of our values, but does it actually work, right? Is it actually going to drive incentives? For certain populations, I agree 100%. I think there's roles that to put pay into a variable to drive and results, right? But for your entry engineer or entry HR professional, like giving them something around performance, is it really going to drive any behaviors rather than focusing just purely on the development and what is driving them to want to be in that function? So things like that, where I just appreciate people kind of sticking their necks out and saying, hey, here's James on the psychological facts and how pay performance kind of came to be through production and manufacturing in the 1900s. And just be willing to challenge that. The hard part is getting larger corporations to change their mindsets. And let's be honest, we kind of all follow trends of what's happening at our larger corporations. And that's where, again, comp, I would guess and assume in 2005, that's where it was, right? You didn't have a comp analyst at a 1,000-employee company. They're going to be at the massive global corporations for the most part. So just things like that. Hopefully I answered your question, but it's just challenging the way we've been told it had to be done, or the models we've seen when we come into comp of, here's a large corporation, here's how our model is, and just being able to challenge those thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Like it's the when you think about what helped, it's sort of two sides of a coin. It's the be resourceful, be connected, listen to old people, and like listen to what's been seen, done, whatever. But flip the coin over, be ready to challenge it a little bit, because, there is some nerdy in me that probably overcomplicates, or there's probably some, over-engineer. I'm just going to pick on Sean. Some over-engineering there because he likes to engineer and tinker, right? Like there are these habits that we all as humans have built. Be ready to challenge that a little bit. It doesn't mean we're wrong. It just means it might not work now, or it might need to evolve a little bit differently. So I think that's good advice. Like listen, but be ready to sort of stick your finger in your ear and do your own thing when you realize that there might be a better answer for you. Which is great advice to sort of, and you have to have a few years of experience to kind of see the difference between the two. But it's great to, if you're going to start over, why not start with that mindset?
Yeah, and I would say my perspective changed a lot coming to the construction industry. My background was all just frankly very old manufacturing companies that have been around since the 1900s, and trying to get a company that's been doing the same thing for the, let's just say the last 25 years or whatever, when the last revolution or change happened, right? It just gets harder to change a company that's been doing it that way for so long. They're rooted. And so coming to construction, our company is, I'm going to probably get it wrong, 27 years old, I believe, this year. So very young in our opinion. And from my perspective, we're mid-size. We're right around 700 associates. So my perspective on comp had to shift when I came here, and we have to be more agile. We're a $1 billion revenue company as of last year, but we're competing with companies that are, $8 to $17 billion. And it's a much different field that you're playing in. So we have to be more agile and be more on the offense to get ahead and to be able to compete with talent for those sides of companies.
I really want to see the merit matrix you drew in 2005 in first grade. 100% want to see that. By the way, so since you mentioned the company you're at, what came up that I thought would be, so that's all great, Dane. And we will put Dane's information out there. He's a wealth of information. And you kind of covered the one question I had, like, how do you take all this information in? And I think you did a great job of explaining, like, you just have to pick and choose who you follow and what information to aggregate it, and then decide what's applicable for you, for your company. We basically had the just Paul, so and everyone else, we did the kind of margarita discussion on the pay side and merit. And so the question came up: do you give managers discretion? To which I'm still baffled that we give managers discretion. And it was great because Dane was there and said, well, we give managers kind of complete discretion. But, and this is the part I was baffled at, you're in every discussion?
Yeah, freedom within a framework, right? We hear that a lot. We have a merit matrix that we implemented last year. We give them a range that's pretty narrow, but managers can go outside that range if we need to. I also do all the market adjustment analysis or proposals in ahead of time. Managers can change if they want to include that market adjustment or not, just to give them an idea of the direction we need to go from my side. So again, layering in that, Sean, as you use, like, we're the experts in compensation in our field. We look at the data. So I try to blend that with, again, the human and the manager side. I don't know every person the best, and you're dealing with humans in the journey that they are on, right? And I also don't know who maybe we need to invest more in, right? Are they on a succession plan? And this is kind of where the age of our company, we're just not developed enough to be able to track that in a system so I can see that easily. So I require managers and business partners to be involved. But yes, I'm in every, we call them calibration sessions. So it's where we talk about performance and comp together. This is our merit planning meetings. I'm in every calibration for the company. We are 3 offices, so let's just say 4 business units that I have to balance and be all between all these. So nice thing, again, 700 people. We don't have 200 comp planners or comp managers. It's a smaller pool of people, but yeah, I'm in every meeting. I advise on stuff from what I see, kind of give opinions. Our team has realized also I'm very I will probe people. I will challenge the way they think and question what's going on, because again, I take a lot of pride in what I do, and also I put a lot of responsibility and pressure on myself to make sure we're doing the best we can to reward the people we need to be rewarding and ensuring that our business is going to be successful. So this is that competition side of me, is I will invest whatever amount of time I have to in those basically month or two we have to try to get our managers in as best possible thinking position as possible to make sure we're putting the dollars where we need to.
What's funny, not funny, you're actually doing something that I asked at my last sort of operating spot before I left, which was, so let me get this right. We're going to spend weeks building a manager training program. We're going to spend time previewing that with HR partners. We're going to deliver those sessions in multiple instances to try to teach people how to do this, but at different days and times to accommodate different schedules. We're going to spend all this time building a quick access guide to help them figure out how to use the system. They're going to use it. We're not going to be happy with their answers. We're going to spend a week analyzing it to see that we're not happy, more time educating on what needs to change, to ask them to do it again. If we just add up all those hours, is it more efficient if we sit with every planner and just do the work with them? Because then I don't have to do any of that, right? So I asked the question. We didn't make the change, but you're essentially doing that, which is you can skip a lot of the steps that a lot of us has just taken as true. Well, you have to do this because if you're going to have 50 managers making recommendations, you have to tell them what that looks like. Well, no, just sit down with all 50. And you could probably do it in 50 half-hour slots, and you're done. You kind of skip the rest of the. I mean, it's probably not exactly your math, but like I applaud the calculus. It's thinking about, is there a better way to just get to the best answer that doesn't waste everybody's time when you're trying to teach people to do things they don't want to do? Let me just argue with you live for a half hour and land the plane and move on, right? Like there's some elegance.
Is it argue or describe and give the rationale to the decision? Because actually, luckily, I was halfway basically in Kansas City, so I had 3 more weeks to think about Dane and his manager discretion. And so for me, what I took away and kind of the similarities, Dane, is I've been like, I'm not a big, obviously, fan of giving managers a lot of discretion. However, you need to be able to give them all the reasons why and all the information. I don't think giving them no discretion in a black box, which before is good at all, because, no one from the time they were a little kid and I told you so, or your parents said because I said so, that doesn't go well forever.
Right.
So you're doing, or I kind of likened it when I was thinking this through to you're doing what I proposed for larger companies in a communication vehicle, maybe not the back and forth, but here's the pay range, here's the thing, here's the adjust, like here's all the reasons why they just have it in human form for you, from you, because you're providing all that. Like this is the rationale. And then they kind of get to sit with you. And my guess is, after a year or two, and I'd be curious on your thoughts, that they know that if they go outside of the bounds and you've given them all the rationale and they're going to sit down with you, they're going to know that like, oh, that's not going to go well. Or like, here's the reason why, like they know, right? That like, this is what's going to happen over a period of time, because they're going to have to be like, well, I just want to give Paul more money. And you're going to be like, well, here's the 10 reasons we're not. What of these are untrue thing. And so how much do people really move from I'm very curious how much people really move from, especially over time with all the work you've put in, how much do they move off of the numbers you've given them?
I would say it's very few and far between, and a little bit of just timing of things. Our performance management process kicks off in October, and then basically the first 3 weeks of December are these calibrations. So all the performance stuff has to get done and get in these. So a lot of like market adjustments, and I kind of get people confused, but I see it in two buckets: market adjustment, equity adjustment. What are you looking at to adjust internally because of the internal population? What's changing in the market, right? And so when I go into these calibrations, I'm kind of looking at in two lenses, and I say and we do it all in Excel right now. We're trying to get into, we use Workday, but I leave all my notes in the notes comments of like, here is why I'm doing the adjustment. And it's just a short sentence or whatever. If I have to give more context, whatever. And so when they go in these meetings, they can see the notes I'm using and what I use to reference myself of like, why did I do this? Right. And so I try to, I would say prove myself, but I am. I'm defending why I'm doing something, right? And then they can tell me whether they agree with my rationale or not, right? Has the person's performance changed? Because I don't have the final scores before I go in those. So I'm basing off of previous year's history. Has the performance of the person changed? Has something in the role changed? Has something evolved, right? Like I may not have that context. And so that's where they can come to me and say, this is what's happened or what's changed since you pulled that data. And then we have that real lively discussion about where's the person's career going? What's their trajectory, right? What is the value that they're bringing to the organization? What projects have they led this year? Things like that. We can have a real conversation in the moment. And then as a group, myself, the business partners, and the leaders can make a decision of, is this the right investment for this person, right?
Yeah.
And have that real holistic conversation in that moment, rather than, again, you launch the module, it feeds up, you get to a final review, and you have no clue why somebody decided to plan somebody outside the guidelines, other than if you put restrictions on the module, or why did they recommend an additional 4% market adjustment, right? Like they're probably not typing those notes in unless you require it. And so it helps us in the moment of all of us being aligned on our talent and what we're doing.
Yeah. So this, I know compensation chose you, and we're all glad it did. This feels like your business partner sort of rotation rearing its head in the process. So like what you're describing there is not a conversation most comp people want to have, right? Like this, let me learn more about their trajectory. And I mean, context, we all agree matters around performance and sort of similar work, but you're having a business partner conversation. So I'm feeling a little bit of those roles sort of merging, and I'm not saying it's wrong. It's more that it might be what makes that work. Is it's not just I'm the comp police and I'm telling you that this is a bad idea. It's more, no, hang on. We got to solve this problem.
Yeah.
I think you're bringing a different lens than many would bring, which might be kind of a different unlock, Sean, around some of your perspective about discretion. Because this is a richer conversation. This isn't just how much do I want to pay that person.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I think you're leading from the standpoint, Dane, of, I think with all the stuff, the data and the AI and the tools and whatever, the art is going to be more important than the science. And so you're pulling the science and you're kind of on the leading edge of the art. And the art is, how does this apply to this unique situation artistically, right? The science says this, and that gets you close. Yeah. So I mean, I think you're kind of on that piece of it a little bit. My question to you is, how would you see, and maybe it's from, to your point, Paul, it's more of an HRBP type of role. It seems like you're doing. How do you scale this to your 750, 2,250 person shop? Does your construction company build a Dane cloning machine so that there's 3 of you? Because even that number is like, when you said 750 employees and you were meeting with about all the outliers, I'm like, that's got to be 100. Like, that's a lot.
That was many. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do you see it being scalable? Out of
Yeah.
curiosity.
So, and to clear on that too, about half of that is craft population. So laborers, carpenters, we partner with the union. So a lot of that gets taken off my plate because a union's a union, you follow the contract, right? So it's probably closer to about 350 associates that I'm involved in. Now, some of our craft population does have performance scores. So I do get involved, especially if I'm setting structures, right? I do help a little bit, just not as in depth as a more of a professional or a salaried non-exempt population. So, I've made it very clear to my business partners that role has to elevate and to do the things that I'm doing. And so our business partners, smaller company, most of them weren't business partners. We didn't hire them as business partners. They started in a different group and progressed up. And so I've made the expectation very clear that I'm in these meetings. It's not feasible for me to do this when we are 2,000 employees or whatever, right? I need the business partners to work with me to understand how I work, how the compensation programs work, and to really get them kind of more that entry comp analyst person. And so they're able to say, hey, Dane has built the structure this way for this reason. This is the, we use comp ratio. So below 90, between 90 and 110, these are what the buckets mean. This is when that person should fall in that bucket, have that real conversation of where they should be. And so they can start acting in that same compensation partner model. And over time, right, there's going to be bumps in the road. Certain people won't understand that completely. But my goal is for the business partners to be more proficient in compensation, just as I learned in my career. And Sean, I spoke to this at the KC Total Rewards. The year I spent as a business partner was probably the most impactful that I've had in my career, because I went from being an analyst that I thought I knew everything about compensation, and I was telling business partners that, well, this is the answer and you just need to go tell your leader that, right? Or shape it how you want to. And they don't know how to, right? Because they're having to support leaders who are just they're not going to take that as the answer, right? They're going to continue to push back of, how do we get this approved? How do we do this, right? So when I went to be a business partner, and then I had to operate in that model where I was like, hey, I have to work within this confined structure. And I didn't understand why we couldn't go outside of it, even though I was a business partner for the same business unit I was a comp person for at one point. And that's where I'm like, okay, I need to approach my conversations with our HR partners differently and our leaders differently. I can't just say, well, here's the market 50th and this person should or shouldn't be there, right? It's a bigger conversation. And I have a note actually at my desk. It's market data is a compass, but it's not going to be a GPS. It's not going to tell you how to get to the destination. Market data is going to give you some idea of a direction you should be going. And then you have to apply context of like, how do we get a person, a role, or the organization to our end goal, right? And so I have a very good relationship with our executive team. I have a pretty good beat on kind of the direction we're going. I can walk into our CFO's office any day of the week and have a real conversation about what's going on with the company, and here's my ideas, and here's what's going to cost us, right? And they can more real time be able to model the direction I think comp should be going. And so that's just perks of a smaller company. But if we get bigger, there will be a point that's just not, feasible as much. So that's where I think coming in and McCown Gordon being very aware that hiring a comp person to stage the life of the company was a really good decision, because I can help model and get us on the right path for the next 27 years, rather than starting when we're 3,000 or 4,000 and then you can't make change as quickly.
Yeah.
Being a little cognizant of time, I want to pivot really quick to something you said and then kind of go, the Workday thing, and you can decline, because so you mentioned you're going to be using Workday. I'm curious, because you've got enough people on, to your point, you got 350, 400 people maybe. Are you excited about it? Do you think it's the right thing? So Workday, to me, I tell people all the time, it can be the best tool and the worst tool, depending who configures it. It's amazingly flexible, but also at 350, 400 people, where AI is with Excel, like, how are you seeing that go? Because you have a system that's working really well. And so kind of just, are you excited about it? Was it your choice? Did you inherit the choice?
So there will be a population that we probably can't do within Workday. It's just based on how our security groups work, how we structure our compensation manager title. But for a lot of our shared service functions, that it's this manager reports to this manager, it'll flow from this person to this person. They don't need any other outside influence on decisions. We can use the system. I'm not going to give her full name, but I hired an HRS manager. So my role is comp, benefits, well-being, and HRIS now. Took that on, and we hired an incredible HRS manager who had incredible Workday background supporting advanced comp. And I've kind of just come to her and said, hey, this is your expertise. You know how a system can work. You know its capabilities and functions. You've learned our company. You learned our structure. Tell me what's feasible, right? And if she comes to me as the expert and says, hey, we could do this, this, and this, but you may not get this result, then I'm going to trust her and say, hey, you know the system the best. And then we make a decision if merit should be or could be planned in the system, or if we have to stay in Excel. So I'm big on leaning on experts. And like I said, we hired a true expert when it comes to Workday. And we're seeing the results of that. And I trust if she says, hey, based off what I understand of the business and this, yes or no. And again, while I own comp, I'm not a systems person, and I'm going to trust the systems people.
That's great. I'm just always curious how people, probably like Paul with how people choose in today's environment how to go, because there's so much choice.
Yeah. Sure.
I will say the takeaway for me from all that, Dane, is you pull in a bunch of information and you apply it. And I think what's really cool to see is your willingness to be flexible and be like, I don't know what's right. Like the I don't know. And then I'll figure it out mode is actually kind of the coolest thing, because I think a lot of people are like, I read this, so it must be. And every company is a unicorn. So I think it's really interesting. The thing we end with all the time, with all your different roles you've had and your, infinitely long career, Dane, if you could solve any one thing in HR, what would it be automatically?
Well, I don't know if it's within HR, but businesses knowing how to use HR in the right sense and giving them the resources and platform to elevate, I think is the biggest. Some frustrations I've seen and had is just HR is kind of pushed to the side, or you're not involved in the strategy as much, and compensation is very much a strategy function now. So it's more of just educating leaders as far as what the value is we can bring. And thankfully, I work for a very strong and great leader, a head of HR, Brandy, and she's really put us at the table. And so I really appreciate that. So that's just my advice. If a CFO or somebody listens to this, is just get the right HR people in the right roles, and then ask them how they can bring value.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate you coming on, Dane. Paul might. He sent you an email from the road, so he probably appreciates you already. I know that's borderline cool/stalker mode, Dane.
I actually got that feedback once, that they're like, were you literally driving by where I work? And I'm like, no, like I was in Orlando. I was driving by Orlando Health. And
you couldn't
see
you couldn't see the shadow outside your office window. I was just seeing what you were doing.
The Subaru plant is a ways off the highway, but it's hard to miss, right?
Yeah.
Like it's sort of there, right? And
There's
Subaru is not a common email address in all the emails that I've sent, so it just stuck with me.
There's only one Subaru production facility outside of Japan, so if you see it, you're gonna know. And actually ran into Paul at the last World at Work, and immediately he's like, "Oh, you work for Subaru?" And I'm like, "How did you remember this?" And I obviously big fan of Paul, big fan of Sean, right? So I was like, kind of like, fanboying a little bit, and Paul's like, "Yeah, I know who you are," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I didn't expect that." So.
We will put Dane's stuff out there.
Yep,
I appreciate
absolutely.
you, Dane. Probably the thing I appreciate the most was how
make me feel old. You made me feel old. Sean appreciates that.
The group I train with makes me feel old all the time. I don't need that. And I'm reminded at home how I'm both old and wrong all the time. So I didn't need more of that. But I did appreciate you really pushing back, Dane, and defend it. And I think that's the great dialogue that you see in the forums and what have you. And so I really appreciated that. And I'm glad you took the time to come out on here. And I really appreciate you taking the time out. And, our first 10-time guest on here. So that's also super cool.
30-year-old probably. And yeah, I'm setting a lot of records today.
Yeah.
basically like Strava, right, Sean? Well, I'm getting some sort of PRs here, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys thinking of me again. I told Sean I probably don't have the expertise of some of the people you guys typically have on, and obviously I talk a lot. I have a lot of opinions and passion, so this is probably the least amount I've heard Sean talk on this podcast. But, I can poke at Sean. He's fun to poke at. But no, I really appreciate you giving me a chance to speak. So.
And you know the worst part about that whole thing is I think someone at Novo is going to make that the soundbite.
I was just gonna say,
I know 100% whether it's public or not. Someone's going to get that soundbite and put it and send it to me. Paul's already cutting it.
There's a few sound bites that deserve their place in a welcome to season 3. That we're getting close to, and this one's gonna make it.
I will just say, Dane, that's because you had so many great things to say that that was good. I really appreciated it. We'll tag everybody. Make sure you take a listen. Reach out to Dane if you want to chat. It's super cool to chat with him, and appreciate everyone listening.
Yeah, thanks, Dane.
Yep. Thank you guys. See you.